Hello, my name is Dustin Gahn. This is the Alternative Highs podcast. Today I brought in Jean-Marc Beneteau. He is my trainer. He is a dear friend. He is a physics of University of Western graduate. He's a family farm main man, helper of to make things work. He's it's been a blessing since this dude came into my life. And it's funny that he came into my life because I already was part of the Beneteau's life 15 years
15, yeah.
before with working for your dad. But thank
Picking
you.
peas.
Hmm?
Picking peas.
Yeah. Pea picker. This was a fun job.
Can we just recap how we know each other a little bit? So we met 2 years ago now at the YMCA, and you were walking around everywhere with a cane at the time.
I've recently pulled the cane back out.
You did?
Yeah.
Really?
I made it 560 days without it.
Yeah.
And just like last week, I pulled it back out. For me, it happened it was shoved down my throat. I made it some time, but the efficiency in my day, like I once I brought the cane back, I had 2 extra hours a day.
Just from being able to like walk faster with it, with the stability.
Yeah, there, and I felt good about it. I feel whole again since having the cane back.
You look like a baller with the cane.
It was it's an identity piece for me now. Like I felt really gross without it, but I felt like I'm an overthinker.
You felt gross with it,
and I always felt like I was being watched. And like just to put some context to this podcast, this is the final part of the my story, the recap in total of it. I gave you the how, the where, and the why, and now I'm giving you the in-depth. And this guy is he's always got great questions, and nothing's
it's going to be an exploration.
Yeah.
Okay, so I watched your other videos, and I'm thinking, so there's a few spots I want to dive deeper in. First of all, what year did the accident happen in?
2015, December 27th.
Okay. And then in your last videos, you were talking about the accident happening. You went into the hospital. When you came out of the hospital, you went into a nursing home for about a week. Then you had open wounds infections, went to the hospital again, and then your parents took you home?
Yes. So I was supposed to stay another month. And after being released, there was no way that I could do another month in the hospital. I had them release me. I signed out myself, but my mother would not allow me to go back to
the nursing home. Right.
She said, "You're coming back here till they find," because it was while waiting for my own place in Chatham. I was just dating a girl from Sarnia, so we chose the nursing home in Sarnia for some reason.
Right. Okay. And I want to put together a timeline in my head. You had mentioned after you came back home, you kind of went down a slippery slope of drugs, alcohol use. And you mentioned that's when you started your alcohol addiction, drug addiction, or abuse really started at that point.
To be clear, I did everything before. Okay. But it turned up.
How would you define your relationship with drugs and alcohol before the accident?
Like a weekend thing, maybe a night through the week.
Okay, so it wasn't like an addiction.
It wasn't an addiction. It was a weekend thing.
Right.
It wasn't like an everyday, like, this is how we function thing. Like, it turned up the moment that I moved into Chatham.
And it was at that point that you had gotten into the drug trafficking circle.
So when I moved to Chatham, I had a year.
When did you move to Chatham?
2016.
Okay, so a year after the accident.
Yeah.
So that was after you went to
your parents? Well, not like a year, like 6-7 months, I guess. I think it was May or June or something like that. But I moved into this place, had like a everything covered for a year. Like I had enough money that I paid it, and then I had this pool, I had this
Mm.
pizza up, like it was just a really cool spot. And then I started taking advantage of that, inviting people over. One thing led to another. I came back into the drug use again, found out,
Just through partying.
yeah, like, and then I found out, hey, your nerve pain and that, I don't want to make it sound good, but like that's what took my pain away.
Sure. Okay. So you're like self-medicating in a way.
100%.
Right. Right.
Bottle of vodka and a lot of cocaine.
What, I'm just curious, what drugs did you, because I'm truly curious about this. I think it's interesting. What drugs did you try?
Um, so like ecstasy and GHB, which is it's not something people really like to talk about.
What is
MDMA.
GHB?
GHB is the liquid drug that they use to put in a drink. I don't want to be specific.
Oh,
Like it's a
yeah,
really,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's not like it was just didn't work that way with me. And
Yeah.
um, that was something we got into an experiment. Um, I never like went into needles or anything like that.
Right.
But I, by the end of it, I was smoking crack.
Crack. Okay.
I loved cocaine.
Yeah.
Cocaine was my thing.
That and cocaine is what you were self-medicating with.
Mm-hmm. That's what I found to. I had a conversation with somebody because I could never understand why my nerve pains turned up. Like I live with that all the time, every day. I get some bandages, I get some help, like, but that cocaine, and somebody explained something with the nervous system. With it was funny because after that I was like, oh, I'm doing myself a service here. Good for you, Dustin. And then that made it all right for quite some time, to the point where, like, honestly, I just couldn't afford it anymore. So that's when things got really turned up.
So how long were you on like this? So I think if I got my timeline right, it would have been from roughly 2016 to 2018 was this like drug alcohol binge, the
yeah,
hardcore binge.
2018. Like we're coming up in, what's the date today? Second. So coming up in 15 days. My days of sobriety. 2018 was the year I quit in August.
Damn.
I OD'd. I got busted the year before.
You got busted the year before you OD'd, so that would have been 2017.
Yeah. So that was. So I had the 1 year lease at the next place. Like it was super cool. And then the year later, we were in a spot where I had to move because I could not afford this place anymore. Like things just came together on that place. I got really lucky, but the next time, and this guy overheard me, guy from Chatham, just a lovely man in physio, heard me really scared, went and bought a house that worked inside the insurance's criteria for me, and she never mentioned anything. He just called them and said, hey, we got a place for Dustin, and I moved in there. And that's when I turned into the biggest asshole, like, to this day.
2017. Not that it matters too much.
Yeah, it's right in the end of 2017. But it was like that one I feel really terrible about.
Is that now in that house? Is that where the drug bust happened, or was that
the raid happened there? Yeah.
Oh, in the house that he bought.
For me to, yeah.
Interesting. And then, how many people were you staying with there, or were people living with you?
It was my place.
Okay.
So the buddy that I had met in my first place in Chatham there, he said, hey, listen, I got my homie, the plug, needs a spot to stay for a week. You help me out. His girl and the dog. And I was like, I can do a week. And 1 week led into 6, 7, 8 months before we got raided, but they were there the whole time. I mean,
So
drugs were readily available by that point.
it was your friend that was
A friend of a friend.
trafficking,
Yeah.
and it wasn't like directly you.
It wasn't. I mean, by the time it was in my place, that is me now. I
Right.
made the decision to allow this to happen. I made the decision.
So you
And
were
I wasn't
passively
yeah.
involved.
It was yeah, I wasn't and that is why the decision of the courts landed the way it did, because they knew that it was not I that they were looking for. It just my place was the spot that we were staying at. So that one that sucks, because I was told, hey, listen, that your place is going to get raided, and I kicked everybody out and had a little freak out. And
How did you know?
a family member contacted me and let me know. And I shut it down. But, and you will not understand this, but drugs are strong. And I opened back up within 12 hours. And when I say open up, like, this place was moving and shaking, like, all night long.
How much do you think, like, you put through? Like, let's say if you took like a typical day, and if you were just like, imagine like and not even like quantity in pounds, but let's say like dollars, how much do you think like would move through there in like a day? Just curious.
Man,
because I feel like I don't know, me and maybe a lot of people who would listen would have no idea, like even a small operation like that, how much would go through in like a small town like Chatham.
Like, man, I honestly, I wasn't in the numbers. I wasn't collecting it, but it was like there was some serious moving and shaking going on. Like the re-ups, the everything. Like,
and was it kind of like, because I've never been in this environment, but was it kind of like people would just drive up, stop by, I'm gonna stop in, pick up drugs, leave, kind of thing, like just always rolling in and out?
Yeah, like
or was it
in
more
the
like
in the place that I was at, it was the most stupidest situation to start up and do. But like, when you're that, you think you're invincible. Plus, I'm hanging out with the neighbors that are in their 70s. Like, they're my biggest fans up right to this day. Like, whether they called, it doesn't even matter to me. But they knew that I was. Listen, there's a difference between an addict. There's a difference between the seller and the addict, and the both. And like, I have a problem. I had an addiction problem. I didn't have the means to be the dealer. It just wasn't, and people obviously knew that, because everybody's still in the neighborhood. Like, it's not like when I go around, like, they're like hiding from me or something. Like, everybody shakes my hand. So like, that part makes me feel all right about it. It's embarrassing, because like I was walked out of there with, there was paddy wagons and cruisers, and there had to have been 20 different police officers involved in that. It was a wild situation.
And just so I wrap my head around it again some more, because I think these areas to me are the most interesting, because I know the least about this side of life in general. When people go in, like, you would see people come in who are like, when people would walk in for like crack or for something else, would you look at them and would you be like, this person's life is destroyed? Would you like make that recognition as you see them walk in and out with drugs, or would that not even happen because you're kind of in there?
I'm so deep at this point in my life. Like, I'm seeing them as numbers. Like, the moment that gets all bought up, you can start with the new friends can play with before you start having to sell. So I was only thinking about it in a selfish way. How do
Like
I,
customers?
how do I, well, their customers were paying for the party, right?
Mm.
When you sell it, that's like they were living for free at my place. So for free led to me having
Okay.
drugs on
So so
hand.
so were you looking at them in terms of like money, or were you looking at them in terms of like this is my next
At
drug?
this point, I didn't feel sorry for anybody.
Okay.
I couldn't
Did you
even.
feel sorry for yourself?
I was a walking misery bomb.
Mm.
Like I at that point, I was wishing death upon myself. I was like, I constantly was asking. Can you pass me that water?
Yeah.
Constantly asking the why I was why I was asked. I've had to let people know. It's funny because I only have about 14 or 15 viewers on subscription, but I'm like, hey, my cats. But at that time, like it was, I was constantly asking, why did you let me live through this? This is
Mm.
awful.
Asking who?
I'm Jesus, God. And at this point, I don't know who I'm asking because I don't
Mm.
know where I stand. However,
Mm.
I did explain about my it wasn't that I didn't believe because my toe jumped in the hospital. I'll never forget that. And there's no explanation to me other than it's the one thing. So,
Mm.
yeah, the that lifestyle is a hard one to break out of.
Yeah, I picture it, and I've always pictured it this way, and I could be wrong. It's like digging a rut whenever you go down, like, let's say, the wrong path, or you go down, let's say, doing things that you probably shouldn't be doing. And the deeper you go, the harder it is to get yourself out of it. And I tend to think that no matter what, your mind or your consciousness has this autocorrect mechanism that'll you kind of feel when you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing. Did you feel that, or was it just like you're so entrenched in this that you can't even fathom the idea of doing something else?
Yeah, I was like on top of the drugs. I had all these pills too. I was taking like I was totally checked out.
Mm.
Like
Could
smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I was drinking a 40, 60 ounce of vodka a day. Like I was, there wasn't a lot of,
so you had nicotine,
oh yeah,
alcohol, cocaine, crack,
cocaine, yeah,
anything. What else?
pills,
So
pills that
pain
weren't,
medications, so
and then
amphetamines.
all kinds of pills, uppers, downers,
Mm.
sleepers, everything.
Damn, could you even think?
No, like that point of my life, so,
Yeah, can you like? Is it kind of a blur to you, or do you
so
remember?
when I got when my house got spotted and I was arrested, the ignorance of myself that night was I came home and I had it delivered. I had somebody deliver. I knew that my house was under surveillance. I still had it delivered.
Mm.
Like at that point in my life, I really did not care.
Mm.
And then I had to figure out, well, they're like all my friends are gone. At in my eyes, my friends like I don't have nothing now.
No, no.
We're not allowed to see each other once we got arrested.
Looking back at that, I have a few friends who used to be alcoholics, sobered up, and then after they sobered up, they come to this realization: oh, all these people I thought that were my friends weren't actually my friends because they were using me to party, they were using me for like a place to drink, they were using
Mm-hmm.
me for all these things. When you look back on that, would you still consider those people to have been your friends, or do you think they were kind of pathological?
So I had a thought about that. In the person who they were looking for in my house recently got out of jail, and I was just you know he when there wasn't groceries he took care of groceries. When there
Mm.
wasn't this, no matter what, like I have something for him.
Yeah.
He was toxic. Hell yeah, he was toxic. He was bad for me. Yes, he was bad for me. I made all those. The final decision all came down to me. I don't blame nothing on anybody but myself.
Mm.
And I reached out to him and we chatted it up. He's 3 years sober. He's excited to move on with the next chapter of his life. I
Nice.
like that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Like
that's
that's
awesome.
the stuff. Like that's, you know what? I don't care what you did. If you can learn from your mistakes and like land pretty cool, man, I think that's dope. Plus, it's like people people like that story better than they like the oh, he became a junkie. He always gonna be a
It's the
junkie.
Redeemer story.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
so that part of me obviously is a big part of me because I'm I'm trying to make a career of it.
Well, not only that, but that's your story too.
Yeah, it's it's a crazy it's a crazy story.
Okay, so I'm going to move on from that a little bit because that went a little deep. I'm kind of curious. So, in your podcast again, the last section, you had mentioned at around 2018 when everything kind of like after you got arrested, you came back, things went downhill even further, and then you woke up in the morning, you look at your fridge, it was a picture of your kids, your nieces, and you said, "That's the moment when I realized I needed to change."
I believe I had OD'd
That day,
when
that
because that was I woke up
when you
in my
woke up.
own feces. I woke up in my own puke. I woke up in a
Mm,
spot that, and it was a whole nother day later. Like it
mm.
was.
Do you know possibly like what you OD'd on at the time?
I was popping pills and smoking crack
So a little bit of
and
everything,
drinking a lot of booze, like a lot of booze.
a mixture.
Yeah, like, and again, like I was by myself, so nothing's for sure. But I know when I came to,
Mm.
like,
Do you think it was a
it was a come Jesus moment for me.
similar to like the accident in a way where you're like I should and could have died
Yeah,
or could and should
I
have
felt like that was like it was my wake up. Like it was,
scared you.
I really felt like something bad had happened,
Mm.
and I just don't even know, and nobody was around to know either. Like, who, how would I have got found? Like, would have been
Yeah.
awful if it was.
I know a lot of people who go in those kinds of scenarios like where you do something somewhat reckless and then you basically should have died and for some reason you're still alive. They almost think of it in the way like I died in another reality. Like for some reason I'm still alive in this one kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that kind of how you feel about it?
So that was probably June, May, June that happened. And at that point, that was when I had started it. I wanted the process to work, but it didn't work for me until August.
When you did your cold cut in June, May, June, like you went cold turkey.
No, I didn't go cold turkey till like I've not.
Okay,
I've,
so June you woke up from
I
the
woke
OD.
up and I put that in, I planted it in my head.
Right.
Still using. I met Jody, my doctor, in July.
Who you met him through his wife, right?
Yep.
Because she used to be your teacher.
Yep.
Okay.
So I met him. I was going through all the motions in there, missing.
In May and June.
No, that was July. I met him in July.
Okay.
All through there, I don't know what happened in there. I don't know what's going on in life.
But May was your OD.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
okay.
And then I met them, showing up dry and.
Can you give the backstory to Jody, for anyone who doesn't know?
So Jody, well, Colleen is a person who took care of me as a child on PA days. We had programs at the Scout Hut and at the arena, and she was just somebody that I really like. She's such an amazing person. I love her still. Like we all hang out a lot. We're getting ready to celebrate her 50th coming up here. She saw me uptown on the July long weekend, I believe. Excuse me. And like I was just in bad.
And you guys haven't seen each other since you were in school, right? Like
no, we'd seen each other a few times, but like
okay.
that time was bad. Like sitting in a wet diaper, just not even knowing what I'm doing. Like I think I've got my walker.
You were downtown.
Yeah, Richtown.
And you were just.
I was going to buy flowers.
Oh, okay.
I don't even remember why. I was just. I know that's what I was doing. Prior to apologize, but she just said, Dustin, give this a shot. And like at that point, like I was on the cusp of wanting to quit drinking and drugs.
And when she says this, she means her husband Jody,
Yeah.
who's a
pain management chiropractor. I've heard things about him. He works in Toronto. He's worked with professional athletes. Like he's got a cool name. So I get in right away, and I screw that up too. Like I did the house that the man bought for me. I take advantage of a situation that was put in front of me, and thankfully, Jody just said, he took me aside and, I'm not here to help you die. If you want to die, go home and do it. If you want to live, I'll help you live, but you need to take this serious. And very shortly thereafter, then I did pills, crack cocaine, bottle of vodka, booze, ciggies, all cold turkey.
Mm. So
the next little bit of my life was awful, but
if you would attribute one factor greater than the other, would you say Jody was a bigger factor in you quitting, or would you say it was the OD and then after ODing seeing the pictures of your kids?
I'm going to say the driving factor was the kids.
Yeah. That was the motivator.
The giddy up was feeling different and Jody just saying, shit or get off the pot. And then that was like, and then, like once we got past that, the detox stage, because I don't know if you've ever met anybody in detox.
No.
From that amount and not knowing how to do anything. Like this went on, like I was 14 when I first started partying. So like I'm 35 when I quit everything. So I missed some key pivotal years of learning stuff, like where I was just partying and like partying.
Yeah, I did want to ask you about that because you ended your second video on this kind of idea of like the things that you learn between 14 and 25 kind of shape where you end up in life. And you're saying, I missed those things and I didn't learn it till I was 35. And I'm just kind of curious, what exactly
did I mean by that?
Yeah.
Just adult things.
Like taking care of yourself, taking your responsibility.
And I have a really great father. Like my dad's in my life. My parents are married. Like I watched him, but I didn't take it in. Like I didn't know any of these things. Like I was 41 before I got my own utilities bill.
Do you think, I notice this as like a common trend, and maybe people who end up going down not the best paths, would you say that you were in that period of your life, you spent a lot of time like self-victimizing yourself at all, or no? I'm just kind of curious because it is a trend that I've kind of noticed, and I don't know, I'd have a hard time picturing that with you.
I can't recall. I honestly, that's a good question. I don't.
Okay, hang that thought.
Yeah.
Another thing, if it wasn't for the OD and Jody, if you're looking back at your life at that time, do you think there was any other path to sobriety for you? Like, do you think if there's any other rational ways that you could have managed that? Like, do you think going to a rehab would have even had an effect on you at the time without those experiences?
I can't do somebody telling me what to do. So the rehab was not a thing.
That was another question I had.
I couldn't do the AA thing.
Right.
I couldn't.
Did you try it?
No.
Or you just kind of knew ahead of time?
I just. For me. I just knew.
Yeah.
I don't like. It sounds it's toxic, but I just don't like people telling me what to do.
Sure.
And I cannot imagine making that big of a life decision and having somebody babysit me. It's either you're strong enough to do it or you're not.
Okay, so if you had to go back, like let's say you had an opportunity, you could go back and see Dustin at 2017. or 2016, if you could go back and talk to Dustin of 2016, knowing that he's not someone who likes being told what to do, how would you? Do you think you'd be able to convince Dustin of 2016 in some ways?
See, and that starts with, there's so many trust issues around everything that had happened to me between the hospitals and the
Sure.
Just my life. Not having a clue, or it's not like maybe you can YouTube it now, but like it's not like you can just learn how to be maybe paralyzed for the rest of your life.
Right.
Like that was the news that I was delivered, and then yeah, I definitely lived in a self-pity world.
Right.
And I definitely was, I probably in every situation victimized myself when I think back at it now. But it's a good question, because I probably made everybody feel sorry for me.
Well, it's probably the most defining characteristic of you now is you take on all burden and responsibility on yourself.
Yeah.
Like you don't now you're like, I'm not gonna blame anyone else for anything. I'm gonna, whatever happened, I take it on me.
Yeah. You learn a lot over once you sober up. You take a lot in. I'm telling you, it's 35 to quit drinking, and then I'll try to learn life. It's an interesting time. It is extremely lucky that I had the friends that I do, because, man, you, for instance, are 14 years younger than me. It is nothing for me to say that it is wild to have a conversation with one of my very close friends who's light years ahead of me in everything, and he's like extreme when I'm talking about it. So I don't even know how I got going down this road that I'm on right now. I don't even remember how I got to here, but I was explaining something.
You were talking about the idea of self-victimizing back then.
Yeah.
Now you have more of like a.
Well, I'm more open-minded.
Yeah.
It's fun because you meet new people. And that's where I was going with our relationship. It's being open-minded. I don't know if old me would have even sat at and had a conversation, just because I'm like,
to be honest,
I'm the older guy. I'm this guy. Yeah. I don't know if I would have.
You've changed my perspective on some pretty major things. So I think before meeting you, if I were to meet the old you, I probably wouldn't have talked to you, because before meeting you, I was under the impression, and very close-minded, I thought people who are into, let's say, drug circles, crime, repeat kind of problematic behavior, I always assumed it was a pathological thing. I'm like, my mindset was like, well, once you're like kind of in that ring where you're kind of like, it's kind of a personality trait, and the person doesn't really get out of that necessarily. I was very close-minded, and then I met you, learned about where you came from, and the person you are today, and that totally changed my mind on that.
That's awesome. I'm glad I could do that, because it's a small percentage. Like it's not a lot get as lucky as I do, and a lot of families understand that. Like it's a really tough thing to come from, like, and it's a lot of work being, because there's excitement, and then there's realism.
And I feel like you're constantly probably juggling the idea of like people seeing you and thinking, wow, it's awesome that like you took where you came from and came where you are now. But then you were probably still struggling with a lot of people who are judging you for who you used to be, or maybe who you appear to be.
Oh yeah, they live in that moment, right? And it is what it is. I was a shitty human being. I did a lot of shitty things. And
do you think in a way it's kind of like almost the burden to carry forward, in the sense like, yeah, maybe you did all those things in the past that you might regret, but like to have those struggles moving forward to deal with it, that's kind of like the burden to carry for having done that?
Yeah, 100%.
Nice.
And that's why I'm so open about it. Like there's things that I just absolutely make me sick to my stomach, but like I own them. I don't avoid them.
That's
We were
nice.
having a conversation the other day, and I was like, listen, I've done that and worse. Like I don't want you to see me. You can see me as the guy I am today, but no, my past, like I was a shithead. I didn't do wonderful things, and every person that I've, if wronged, I try to. I've honestly been on this journey of, when I reached out to a person from 4 years ago, I think the other day.
Mm.
Constantly remembering something I did or remembering somebody I wronged.
It's the only way to close those loops.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, I like that thought though. You own it. It's because it's either your past owns you or you own it.
yeah, can't live there. Gotta.
So, okay, I guess I want to close a loop that we were at earlier
Yep.
because I asked you if you were to go back to Dustin of 2016 and if you were to think, what would it take to get Dustin of 2016 to sober up? Like, if I were to try and be an influence on Dustin of 2016, how would I go about that? And I'm thinking of that in the sense like, if I know someone in my life who's in a situation that you're in, is there something that I can do to
Show
help?
them love. Show them compassion. Show them that you're there. You can't understand what they're going through, so you can't pretend to, and you can't insult somebody like that. You got to understand that where they're at is the worst possible situation. Showing love and just being that, that's it's big, and then because with that you don't judge,
Mm.
because if you come into this with your previous,
Yeah.
you're not going to be compassionate about what's
Right.
going to bring your future, because you have no idea. If you would have stayed closed-minded and you wouldn't have done that, there's a whole future for us to move forward and do some really cool things. And you almost missed that train.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine that.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I can't imagine doing this massive bike ride that I got planned in June without you. I'm fucking glad that you were opened up, and it's not everybody, and I'm only going to speak on my behalf. Like, you have to be solid. Like, you have to be able to own your shit, because if you have an excuse for everything that you were shitty for.
And when you say you have to be solid, you have to own your shit. Are you talking about someone who is trying to help someone, or the person trying to help themselves?
The person.
Probably both.
Both, yeah. It's just a good.
It's a good trait.
Yeah, like but it helps, and that love and compassion will go a long way. I know everybody says they're full of it, but when you're working with somebody that's got an addiction, or just plain an addict, it doesn't matter where you're at. You've got to understand they aren't going to come from you. They are going to. It's got to be their own decision.
Right. You can't help a drowning man.
You can let them know that, hey, I'm here for you, but like,
yeah,
it's one of those. It's very difficult. Like, I do a lot of volunteering, and I've always made the offer. Like, I've offered some people to come and live in my house with me, and I'll help you. Like, that's a dangerous.
That's a deep dive.
It's not, but like, that's how much I love and want to help the next person. I've had to step away from that kind of person. Like, I can't be doing that now. I'm going to try and expand it and help more people rather than
without exposing yourself as much.
Right? Yeah, it's.
I like that idea of like just showing love. I think the reason that maybe we're so adverse to doing it is because, like, let's say if I'm gonna show love to someone who's in that situation, it kind of means that you're gonna risk a part of yourself, in the sense like if I'm going to show you love, it means that I'm going to be truly emotionally attached to you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a high percentage of that love might not reap the reward, might not sow the seed.
I think
And
previously you're going to already have that love because it's not a stranger coming in on it typically. Not every day.
Sure. Yeah.
My situation with Jody, you know, like from that was kind of a stranger. His wife was there, but like
right.
it was
a loose connection.
Yeah. So like, and that I can't imagine that happening all the time. Like, it's a very lucky thing, sobering up. Like it's not an easy task. Not
Especially
every
alone.
Yeah, like I don't ever want to put pressure on people because, man, when you have to do, or when you're told, like court tells you to do something, your spouse tells you, it's hard.
Right. External motivation kills internal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to be. It's a very. It's thin ice. Right. It is. You gotta be.
I know in you had mentioned like you did it cold turkey and like you said, oh, it was stupid. I should have done it with doctors. I should have done it with nurses. But now listening to like the way you're talking about it, do you think it would have been successful if you did it with doctors? Like if a doctor was coming in.
I thought about that. I thought about that because I was like, I couldn't do it at the treatment center, and I couldn't do AA. I think had I just done it safer. I didn't know. I didn't do any research.
Like a taper off or like a wean off.
Yeah, I didn't do any research. I was coming off of the highest levels of Lyrica, gabapentin, hydromorph. Like I had these intense.
Yeah, what was your first week like? Like some of the specifics of like.
Oh, I blacked out. I was in
total pain.
Demon world. Like I don't even remember. It was darkness. That was painful.
I can only imagine that, like, if you're going through that,
and you can't smoke a cigarette,
you have all these temptations, and I would imagine that, like, every minute feels like an hour, and every hour feels like a day.
If it was, it would have been nice to be an hour. Every hour felt like a day, and every day felt like a month.
Right.
And every month felt like a year.
Did you find that you feel?
Because it was 6 to 8 weeks.
What did you have a coping mechanism? Did you like watch a lot of TV? Did you like what did you do?
I started smoking marijuana. So that I had to bring a bandage in because once the cocaine, the pills, everything, the THC, I needed some pain management, some bandages, which is what I call marijuana. It is just a bandage. It takes care of it for a little bit of time, and if it gets you to the point, it gets you to the point. Right? I don't see. It is what it is, but that's what stepped in.
Right.
That I smoked. I never smoked it before. I was into the chemical side of drugs, so I brought that in, and that was probably a lot of TV. A lot of laying on the floor of the bathroom.
Is there a specific show you were watching?
And probably Brooklyn Nine-Nine. If you go up to my room right now, it's on pause. It's my nastiest trait. Is from the hospital. Like I'm almost positive I was in the hospital watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Like Brooklyn Nine-Nine is I watch it every day.
It's your savior.
I don't even. I'm broken at this point. I keep Netflix around for Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept going from to a lesser evil. I would consider marijuana like a lesser evil. Like obviously, it's like it's not a net positive. Like it's not good for your health, but it's better than taking 20 different drugs.
And that was how I had to sell myself on it, because if I was going to go sober, like the goal. And do you remember I introduced you to Carrie?
Yeah, I think so.
So Carrie, I had met with probably in the first 2 months. Listen, we got to move. we got to start a social media platform about how I sober everybody up. Blah. I was ready to run. Month 3 turned around. I was like, oh man, Dustin, you are weird, dude. Maybe just take a little time, get yourself healthier, get yourself, because the first little bit you don't know anything. And then once I got through that first year, I was like, oh, okay.
I noticed that about your personality. You're an all or nothing kind of guy.
Yeah.
Like you're all in if you're in.
Yeah.
You're 100% there. And I think that's a common trait for like addictive behavior, because like if you're gonna go into like drugs, go all in. If I'm gonna go into this behavior pattern, I go all in. I see that with like celebrities who do drugs, or like who are open about it.
Yep.
They'll talk about that, or any addiction, even video games, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it can be awesome because like when you go into something, if you're like this alternative highs and everything else that you do, you're all in, 100% there.
I said I'm gonna make some big moves, and I was ready. I had to wait a little bit of time, but like I'm at that point now where it's time to hone this story, explain the journey, and see who we can help, how we can help, and what I can do. Because the next...
Is there a specific way you see that playing out? Like, what role do you see? Like, okay, so you're going to have this social media presence where you're going to explain your story, like how you went through all these phases. And then how do you see that playing out in terms of like, you see people reaching out to you? What do you think? What is alternative? What is alternative highs?
Building this podcast is what I'd really like to do.
Yeah.
I would be a little vague about what I'm going to talk about right now, but we are partnering up with a massive charity to do a ride next June. There will be I'll have a videographer with me the whole time, I'll have a documentary being made around this. We'll have this charity building. I'm hoping that this all comes together and they build each other between the charity that we're going to be working on and doing this. I'm hoping to bring some people together, share what we're working towards, and I'm hoping this turns into something. It is.
So alternative highs, is it going to be a charity organization? Is it going to be like what are you doing? What is alternative highs?
At some point we're hoping alternative highs, it's definitely going to be a charity organization, but it's also going to be that'll be under the umbrella of alternative highs. I see rehab facilities, I see home care, I see...
And if you could do rehab differently, because there's rehab centers out there, and if you were to try and think of like, if I were to try and redo rehab from the point of view of someone who's gone through all of this, what would you do? It doesn't have to be specific, just like
I would hire the right human being in for the job.
People who...
A lot of people that I've met don't want to be there. They're not there for that. I want to build a facility for it's for the patients, but for my employees. I want to make sure that they are very well taken care of, that they love and come to their job loving it, and they talk about it at the supper table as a good thing. It's everybody's dream, I'm sure, but it's how I'm going to go about this care, because the care that I received, sometimes really good, and I've had really awful. I've had stuff where I wanted to end my life after it. Right. It was so bad.
The nursing home experience you had mentioned.
That was bad. Victoria, I won't put any names. There's been places that I've been that have disappointed me.
Can you shed a little light on what happened in the nursing home?
So in the nursing home, I was released from Parkwood And at that point, I was up and down a little bit.
Like in and out of the bed, or like what do you mean up and down?
Yeah, like I was able to transfer to a wheelchair, and then I could step a little bit, like maybe a couple steps. So I was in bed a lot.
Mm.
Um, in fact, the coccyx um, um, wound that I have right now, I had back then. It was really bad. It's just a matter of the skin break. I don't feel the bottom of my body. So I'm sitting on a massive cushion right now. So to take the pressure, relieve the pressure. And I should have always been doing that. Not sure how it happened again, but because they didn't roll me in bed, I got these sores.
Mm.
Um, I was home on a weekend visit with my family, and like a demon, shot out of, like, just erected out of bed, screaming at the top of my lungs. And after that, I was rushed to hospital, and I went septic. So
I remember a story. I don't know if it was the nursing home, but like at some point they were either putting on your shoes too tight or putting your shoes on the wrong foot, and
yeah,
like caused
so
issue.
they were giving me walking boots to learn how to walk in. And again, I won't mention that hospital's name, but they put two left foot boots on me, and it created a blister about that size. We couldn't, because not being able to feel, I had to spend another month in bed. They had to ship me to another hospital.
Mm.
Um, so I had to let that heal before we could do anything. At that point, that was detrimental because I was just finally getting. It's hard to get these.
How long were you in bed at this, like by this point, like where you're like finally starting to walk a little bit, and then you learn, oh, I have to be in bed for another month. How long were you already at the hospital for by that point?
So this started in December, probably March, April. March.
So 3 months.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
3 months laying in bed.
Yeah.
You finally get to walk a bit for what, like 2 weeks?
And that's very loose. It could have been a little longer.
Sure,
it,
3 4 months.
it wasn't even 2 weeks. Like, this was literally first few days.
And then you have to be in bed again for a whole month.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
it was awful. And then the same thing with the foot thing, like the nursing home, like days,
Mm.
and I'm back in it.
How long were you in the hospital again after the nursing home?
So like that was the one where they asked me to stay for a month, and I'd send myself out.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Like,
right.
I just took care of it at home. That was
Right.
when I started the in-house care.
Mm.
And
Then, just out of curiosity, through all of this, from the accident going through all the way to like 2018, how was your like relationship at home with like your family? Because I feel like that would go through a lot of phases,
so
dealing with everything.
my mother and father, bless their souls, like, we are close. We're a very close family. At that point, like, I was really like they were at the hospital for me. My mom showed up every day in the hospital in London. She drove down during the wintertime every day.
Wow.
She's and the people we love the most, we give them the most shit. I was awful to them. Like, man, when I got arrested, I can remember I had my mom's car at the house, and I was letting people drive it. Like, it was just a shitty kid. Son, not even a kid. I'm a full blown adult, just doing stupid things. So it was.
Yeah. I want to learn a little bit more before everything. I'm kind of curious because it seems like, okay, the accident, obviously huge focal point that led to all these things, the decline and all these behaviors, lifestyle, everything. Before the accident, what trajectory were you on? Like, where was Dustin going in life before getting into this accident?
Well,
Or paint a picture of who was Dustin pre-accident.
so it was, I think me and my girlfriend had just broken up, not like too much before my accident, because she did come into the hospital pretty drunk one day. Um, I just started working in Chemical Valley like months before.
What were you doing there?
I was working for the labor union.
The laborers union. Okay.
Yeah, it was a good gig, but I was showing up like I was being an idiot. Like I wasn't respecting the how great of a job I had. But I I don't know where the trajectory would have been. I had a good job. Would have I been able to maintain a good job? Man, I'm gonna say I would have shit the bed on it, and I'm gonna say that I would have lost the best thing. But like also this whole thing, had I not sobered up, I wouldn't be here anyways telling you this. There's
Sure.
no way, inevitably, I would be dead by now. There's no way that
So
that
you're saying if you didn't have the car accident,
I'd be dead.
like what? Overdose? What do you think? Like when you say that, like
I
what
was
do you
starting to
mean?
make I was starting to make really good money, so I was able to afford more. I was able to do.
So do you think inevitably before the accident you were already on the path like abusing drugs? Like
Mhm.
it was gonna happen,
It was gonna happen
and then the
one way or
accident kind
another.
of accelerated
It
it.
just, catapulted it.
Right.
It was happening one way or another. I would have OD'd, and it
Well,
would have been much wilder. I probably would have taken out a family or something with a vehicle.
what what's your telltale like how do you what's your telltale sign on that? Because like you mentioned your relationship was like okay, I did it on weekends, maybe once during the week. It wasn't a crazy relationship with drugs and
But
alcohol, but
but
like what
the
do you think?
job, when you go from making so much money and then making a, a, a huge amount more, and you can afford all these things, that's the
So it
telltale.
was accessibility. So
Yeah,
you're basically saying I was, and I think this is a
I was
common claim.
dabbling.
You're like I was always an addict. I just didn't have the resources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean that, and there was times like I stole from people to fund my problem.
Right.
So like it was, I was at a point, I didn't do that a lot, but I have done it. It's one of my more embarrassing things.
And,
I message a guy very specifically once in a while and just apologize just for the stupidest thing. It wasn't even a lot. It was just a stupid moment in time. But it's funny.
and I'm also curious about stuff like that. So in that time when you did that, do you remember feeling bad about it at that time, or no?
About taking the drugs?
No, no. Like let's say if you stole something
Oh,
to get drugs.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would definitely hate myself doing it, but I was like, the the doing of the drugs was better than the worrying about if I'm
But
gonna
it
get
took away the
caught.
worry,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah. Which was, it's crazy that that's the way the brain works. Because it's not like that for everybody, obviously. But when you're on the bad decision train, and you're you're yeah, it I did it. It was a heavy regret, but yeah.
So again, what would you say is a telltale sign? What would you say is like if there's a telltale sign that you were down the path of being an addict, is it the fact that like if I'm looking from the outside, I might not know that you're stealing things to get drugs.
Mm-hmm.
From the outside, is there anything that that someone could have seen or could see maybe knowing retrospectively
Oh yeah,
that you were going to end up
down that. Yeah, and I mean,
like do you think your parents had like a suspicion or kind of knew that
they
that's
definitely.
yeah, okay.
They didn't drink. They didn't do drugs. They didn't smoke cigarettes. Their daughter lightly partied. She was a very, like, I stand out quite a bit in my family, so I'm sure they were worried the whole time. And then there was probably a moment where they were like, "Hold on, we're gonna go for this ride with this meathead and pray that he doesn't die and listen to what he's got to say in the morning." I don't know how that works. I would love to pick their brain about it someday. They just they don't want to have that conversation.
Oh, okay.
But I'd be very interested to know myself. But
Like
they,
what their
they
thoughts were during this
definitely
time.
they've made the mention. But my dad is the same way as me, or I'm the same way as my dad. Like you can't tell somebody what to do. Like you have to hope that they're going to do it on
Right.
their own.
Right.
So he's a realistic human being with realistic values and understanding. So that he never pushed. If I asked, like there was one time where I had this moment where I was all wasty pants and I was like, you know what? Let's go to detox. Dad, give me a detox. He said, why are you picking to do these things at 11:30 at night? Blah blah blah. Go to detox. Call my dad the next day. Pick me up. This place is a danger zone. Homeboy stole my money. I got
Okay, so you went to detox.
For like 10 hours.
Well,
that was 25 years ago.
Is that so? You went to like a rehab facility?
No, I went to detox.
What's
in
that?
Windsor. It's just a detox facility. I don't. You go there before you go to the rehab. That's
Okay.
because you can't show up to rehab drunk or high or anything. You have to be
Oh,
detoxed.
okay, I see.
So you spend.
It's kind of like a purgatory.
Yeah, I forget how much time you got to do, but I wasn't doing it. I got my dad to pick me up, and
so hold on. Can you paint the picture? What was this place like? Is it a nice building? Is it
no? It's Windsor. This is 25 years ago. I don't remember. I remember going in. Everybody's sleeping in a room. There's beds all around it. You get like a little thing to put your bag in, and
so it's like a shelter?
Yeah, it's like a halfway house kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
Like it was not.
And do you like check in? Like, do you write your name down? You're
Yeah.
like, I'm Dustin Gahn, and I'm here for like.
I wasn't there long.
Do you pay for it, or is it free?
I think it's free. I don't know. Like we're talking decades ago.
Right.
I don't recall anything. I didn't pay anything. I know that my broke because I wasn't working. I don't even know how I afforded everything. But yeah, that was I slept, woke up, and realized like, what are you doing, dude? You're not quitting, homie. Plus, you just got stuff stolen from some.
So someone, what did they steal?
I can't even remember. I think it was like money or my phone chart. It was something weird. Like, and this was back like I can even remember. It was a little Nokia. Like, it was back when technology just.
So this is 25. So this was way before your accident. You were like,
oh yeah.
So it was bad enough that you were like thinking, I need to go to detox.
Yeah.
Like fix this.
Yep.
So it was already at that point. Okay.
Yeah. And there's weeks where I would drink through the week too, but it never got crazy until.
Right. You weren't drinking a 40 ounce a day.
Yeah.
What would you consider as like, if I'm someone who's drinking and I'm like, I'm not worried about it. Is there a quantity that you would say, maybe you should start worrying about that, homie? Like if I'm drinking like a 2.6 a week, is that okay?
Listen, I don't know because I still have friends who do drink.
Yeah.
Listen, if you can manage your life, and I just don't know how to do moderation, and I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I don't care what you do. Do your thing, man. I'm probably not gonna hang around. But there's some people that can just have one or two.
Yeah.
And keep it like I don't need to be around drunk people. I don't.
In a way,
we don't have anything in common after a certain point.
Yeah.
We can conversate until we can't conversate, and then it's like, okay, bro.
Then everything becomes about drinking. Yeah, and it's kind of a stupid question too.
Repeat is, the drunk person who just it's on that hamster wheel.
You can only go so deep with that conversation. Yeah. I'd say like maybe a sign instead of like being a quantity, maybe it's.
I think it's personality traits.
Yeah.
Do you start missing work? Do you start missing things that you were prioritizing differently?
What's the center of your life? Is drinking the center of your life?
Yeah, I would say it's probably that. And I mean, that's pretty much the norm.
Yeah.
Because quantity, it's a difficult thing.
Sure, and everyone's different.
Yeah. I don't ever want to make somebody feel bad about what they do. Like, just because it's not my thing, it doesn't mean it has to not be your thing.
Sure.
I'm at the point where if you're happy, I'm happy. I don't. Your business doesn't change my life, so I
Right.
need to just stay in my lane. So I tried to bounce outside of my lane many times, and it always is just the most cringe situation. So cringe safe.
Hmm.
It was a good conversation, though.
Yeah, it was.
How do you feel about it?
I like it. I like the way we were able to cover like that whole section of your life.
Yep.
But I feel like I'm still curious about like young Dustin, and that's something I'd like to explore eventually. Is like
We could do young Dustin someday if you
yeah
want.
yeah. I'd
I
like
think
to.
this has probably been long enough for a podcast
Yep.
this time. Do you think that?
I think so. I think
Because
we
that was
covered
a
lot.
great, like, I don't think you can get any more about the last 10 years, you know, until we do another one. If you want to do another one,
For
say,
sure. Yeah, because I think like it's Dustin's story, and I think yeah, then the last 9-10 years is a big part of your story.
Yep.
It's not the whole story.
Well, then let's link up in when harvest is it harvest?
Harvest, yeah.
When harvest is over, we'll do another one.
Easy.
This is cool. This helps me put together the last of that series, and then I want to start belting out. I interviewed a guy yesterday. That was a cool one. That'll be released after this one.
That's
I've
awesome.
got a guy from Team Canada's Olympic team, the sledge hockey. We're going to interview. It was supposed to be yesterday, but his schedule got pushed, so we're going to do it in second week. And I feel like there's some really cool stuff getting.
You got some momentum picking up, man. That's awesome. Good for you.
So I appreciate you.
Hey, I appreciate you letting me be a part of this, man.
Dude,
really, really.
I want you to be a part of this. This is the next year of life will be so cool, and if we can document it in real time, I can't wait till I can not be so vague about it, because there's so much cool stuff. I just need to get everything in line.
I'm really excited for you, man.
Thank you, dude.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Damn, dude.
We gotta hit that record button.
Yeah. Imagine we weren't recording this.
Don't do that.